Hello and welcome to an emergency edition of the Fours and Sixers, or maybe I should say Bills and Fantasy Games, with me to discuss the something that nobody had expected. It landed last week. I'm here with Gomesh to talk about it. So, what exactly happened last week was that the Lok Sabha brought in the real money gaming bill, and it prohibited the likes of Dream11, My11 Circle, aka firms that allow Indian users to set up fantasy teams and create teams for IPL matches, and not just IPL, right? Like across the broad spectrum of sports. This was an extremely profitable venture for real money gaming companies. They made lakhs of rupees. It was a booming industry. Industry veterans called it as the sunrise sector, and then it all came crashing down last week. With me to talk about the implications is, of course, Gomesh. Before we go on to talk about it, Gomesh today spoke with Devajit Saikia to understand the short-term impacts. The short-term impacts because Dream11 was the lead sponsor of the Indian team, and the Indian team across genders have two big events coming up: the Asia Cup for the men and the Women's World Cup less than 2 months later. Just what was your understanding of your conversation with
Yeah, so
Devajit?
Dream11 is no more a sponsor with Team India. That's the bottom line as things stand. Uh, there is, and they're not, they don't have to pay any sort of penalizing fees as such for terminating the contract because whatever happened was not their fault. It happened out of nowhere and it's become law. That's where things stand as things stand right now. As far as the BCCI are concerned, they are now discussing and deliberating how to go forward, how to bring in a new sponsor. Obviously, there is a procedure in place. They'll release invitations, tenders, and then figure out the highest bidder, and the sponsor comes in. The question now in front of us is that will it all happen before September 9, which is when the Indian men's team take the field in Asia Cup in Dubai, and then of course. September 13, India women are taking the field in the bilaterals against Australia, followed by the ODI World Cup on September 30. So as things stands, there is no clarity as to whether the men's team will have a sponsor for Asia Cup, but there is a short-term losses the BCCI will be facing because it's not just the Team India. Their title sponsor, the My11 Circle has a sponsorship with IPL, and then Dream11 has a sponsorship with not just IPL but also across teams. Like 9 teams have Dream11, and CSK have their own fantasy platform on board. So it's going to have significant ramifications, at least in the short term going forward. How things go forward, there will be a clearer picture in the coming days and weeks. Whereas whether we can see India women team at least have a sponsor before the World Cup begins.
Just before we talk about it, India BCCI, of course, well experienced in dealing with stuff like this. They had Byju's as a sponsor. We all know what happened with Byju's. They had Sahara as a sponsor. We all know what happened with Sahara. So, and even before then, this whole aspect of real money gaming itself, even when they were tied up with, say, for example, somebody like a PTM first game or an MPL. Again, I'll have to be very, very careful with the way I use these terminologies. You couldn't play fantasy games in Paytm first games or the MPL, the fantasy arm of MPL, or the fantasy arm of Dream11, because they were kind of, because with the law, not exactly black or white in a couple of states. People belonging to certain states anyway couldn't access these platforms in those states. So BCCI are very, very. BCCI know basically that this was probably coming at some time, and that is even by when Dream11 entered into a contract with them, there was a clear clause in that contract which said that they need not pay any penalty if that was government regulation, and now there is the government regulation. BCCI, even if they are one of the biggest and the best marketing cricket boards, just the way that they bring in money, just the ability to bring in money, we even saw what they did during COVID. They just made more and more money. They got on board a lot of lucrative sponsorship deals. But saying all of that, just finding roughly 1,000 crores it's not going to be easy.
It is not, and we're talking about one of the richest board in the country. And the fact of the matter here is that BCCI at least can ride the tide and move on to the next sponsor and go on with it. They have no trouble finding a sponsor in good time, whereas the ramifications of this is going to be felt in all the leagues, not just in India but across the globe, especially in associate nations. In European cricket, we are already seeing effects of
Dream11 used to practically
Dream-
sponsor everything,
and Dream11 is pulling out now. The connection here is just that not just that these leagues are being sponsored by the fantasy platforms, but also the fact that crores and crores of people who are playing and sort of betting, or okay, not necessarily betting. It's
never betting.
Yeah, it's the Supreme Court has a ruling based on it's a skill-based game. Who play the game, watch the game, follow the local leagues, domestic leagues across the globe, because they are able to play this game, and because they follow and watch, there are sponsors, there are broadcasters like such as Fancode and other platforms who pay to get the broadcasting rights of the leagues. That's where the leagues and the associations make money, like France, European Cricket League. Take any associate nation, if all sorts of leagues are being broadcasted right now. Why? And it has its sort of ripple effect in the sense that because people play the game, and for example, if some player doesn't do well, we have on various occasions we have seen how some random domestic player playing a club game in New Zealand is getting abused in their Instagram because they didn't do well. And even right now, as recent as last week, we have seen England player Tammy Beaumont talk about the same thing. There are both flip sides to this issue, but by and large, it's going to be a very, very difficult for the associate nations, a lot more than what the BCCI are facing right now.
Just coming back to Indian cricket and BCCI cricket. India, there is going to be an India versus Pakistan game. There could be 2 India-Pakistan games, or there could be as many as 3 India-Pakistan games. The women's team can potentially play the World Cup semi-final, or even the World Cup final. We know that they are scheduled to play another India-Pakistan game there in Sri Lanka. These are 2 of the hottest cricketing properties in town, whether be it standalone. Of course, they don't play standalone games in an ICC event or in an ACC event. These are the 2 biggest properties that we are talking about. So BCCI shouldn't have a problem getting on board sponsors, but it would be interesting to see if BCCI now takes an ad hoc approach, gets on board a couple of sponsors for the next 4 months, and then decide what to do before
it should not be a surprise if they get a sponsor till the men's T20 World Cup, which was the original contract of Dream11, after which they can bring on a new sponsor. And because the Jio Hotstar is sponsoring a lot of things, there are a lot of sponsors out there. That's something that probably looking at right now, but as things stand, there is no decision has been made. We'll probably have a better picture in the coming days as to whether they're going to go for a 3-4 month deal, short term sponsor, and then take it forward from there on. It'll be, if that doesn't happen, it'll be really odd looking at the Indian team taking the field with a blanket plain blue in the chest.
Just one last thing before we finish this emergency edition of Fours and Sixes. You spoke to Devajit and you asked him the question whether what now happens to players who endorse all these products. Can you just say the quote that he said?
So when a law is implemented, it's a law for everybody, and people should be well aware of that. It doesn't matter whether it's BCCI or us, the newspapers, media, or players themselves.
You're not going to tell somebody not to murder anybody.
Yes, exactly. So a law is a law for everybody, and players should be aware themselves as to what they should and shouldn't do. That's where things stand right now. There is no specific communique as such as to you guys, you are contracted with BCCI, we are telling you should not do this. It's understood that everybody knows what they should and shouldn't do, and that's where things stand.
It's going to be an interesting next few weeks to months in Indian cricket just because of this change. I say interesting because what we have seen over the last 3, 4, 5 years after the pandemic, a lot of players from the edtech sector. When I talk about the edtech sector, we're talking about likes of Upgrad, we're talking about likes of Byju's who came to sponsor properties in Indian cricket, and then we're talking now about the real money gaming industry, and a lot of them did sponsor specific Indian cricket ventures, and then before that there was one whole IPL season where the crypto industry, it was like wall to wall coverage. Uh, are we? I don't know if we can see the edtech industry coming back. Real money gaming industry, I don't think they can sponsor Indian cricket anymore. Crypto, again, the law there is as sketchy. Maybe they'll come back and then we will know what happens there. So it's going to be an interesting few months. I mean, few weeks to months. Anyway, that's all. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and bye bye.